Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are here to discuss a subject which is spoken of almost every day in every corner of Goa in some form or the other. When you think of Goa, the word tourism comes into the discussion space very, very naturally. And the reason why we are here is because these days especially, the word tourism is bringing less of joy and more of worries in the state of Goa. Every stakeholder associated with tourism has a complaint, has a peeve, has a series of worries surrounding his or her either direct or indirect involvement in the space. Over and above, there are many people in Goa who may not directly be stakeholders of tourism, but what is happening to the tourism space in any which way is affecting a lot of Goans in terms of the image that the state has or the perceptions that go around as far as Goa is concerned. We are here to discuss and deliberate a lot of that, but I think the underlying motive and the narrative which we would seek to establish in this discussion is to ask a few questions on whether we are getting it right or not. Do we actually have a strategy? Can a lot of the problems that we will speak during this discussion, can they be solved if there's a proper process and a strategy in place? And that is what we will speak of. At the time when we are having this discussion also, we look at the season looming ahead, and with the tweaking of the visa rules in the UK, we've also seen a lot of British tourists having to postpone or cancel their trips to Goa, which itself has led to a spillover effect, which is going to affect not just the hotels, but also all the allied services. To discuss all this, we have probably one of the finest panelists who will be able to throw light and go very deep into many of these issues. And I'm glad that there's a representation from a lot of verticals which make Goa tourism what it is. Also, before I introduce my panelists, I would like to say that everything is not pessimistic, everything is not not gloomy. There are a lot of people doing things in their own way, probably not with enough recognition, in trying to keep the tourism wheel moving. And I think we should acknowledge that as well while we speak about the problems. Our panelists, first, Joseph Barreto, who is a very, very senior and a very well-established eco-tourism professional who, in fact, saw the significance of tourism beyond the seas many, many years ago. And from treks to adventure tourism to eco homestays, he's done it all. And thank you, Joseph, for taking this time off and coming here. Nilesh Shah is the president of the TTAG. Again, a very senior hospitality professional and somebody who probably has to deal with many of these issues on a day-to-day basis, in addition to handling the government, which itself is a universe of its own. On my left is Mark Mendes, another veteran of the tourism, mobility, transport, and space, who's been a veteran again in Bombay for a long time. Civil aviation was one of his key areas, but he's also somebody who is very much kind of logged in to the problems here. Siddharth Savkurov has been a former GM and a very senior hospitality professional. Of course, he right now is a CEO of a culinary skill development and recruitment institute. Welcome, Siddharth. Okay, I'll start, I think, with Nilesh, primarily because in the sense that he's in a body that deals with a lot of these issues. I don't have any further questions. Request you to just respond to a few of the points I've raised.
See, basically, the Goa after COVID for last 2 years depend mainly on domestic tourists, and certain segment has done extremely well in Goa for last 2 years, especially in star category of 5-star, 4-star category hotels. Right. Now there was one vertical which was suffering is small hotels and inbound tourists. So for that, the last year it was about to start, and because of third wave, it could not take off. And this UK visa, which was issue, was there since last 1.5 years, because UK was there initially in the e-visa list, which was removed for some bilateral challenges which with Indian government were facing. So our request was to either speed up the UK visa when they apply or give them e-visa. So when government came in back, so new government came in, we took up that matter again, and even the chief minister is aware of it. They have taken with home ministry. Even recently, even the tourism minister in the conclave of tourism minister in Dharamshala, they have taken up this matter, but we have not got less success. Now, why this topic is more relevant is like today what happens once any charter tourist has started somewhere in late 80s, and that is becoming one of the major pool of getting foreign tourists into Goa. And because of foreign tourists are coming, we are having this cosmopolitan or the international look, and people are coming in. Once charter moves out, it's very difficult to get them back. So, like just for information, Sri Lanka has already received their first charter yesterday.
Okay,
from
they've opened up tourism now
on big time,
yes,
and their first charter is already arrived yesterday from Aeroflot in Sri Lanka. Now these are our competitors. So if not Goa, they will start shifting there. So it is a challenge, and we have to address this thing. Of course, our focus will remain for domestic tourists even this year, because there are challenges of getting visas of different countries.
Right.
And domestic tourist is flourishing, and there are different segment of domestic tourists are attracted to Goa. Goa being, as our chief minister says, that is number one, it's capital of tourism of India. And I think we are most sorted destination as far as
tourism
is concerned, because Goa is only state in India which gives you round a year.
Right.
Like Kashmir may be there, but it's seasonal. So Goa is the place in its round a year, so that will remain, but we require mix of crowd.
Right.
Again, before I close in, when we talk about charter tourists or when we talk about international tourists, the duration stay is longer, which helps hotel industry fill up their rooms, which is difficult with domestic tourists for 3 nights, while international goes from 11 to 20 days or maybe more. So that helps.
Okay. Joseph, coming back to one of the fundamental core areas of concern, is the nature of tourism changing? And if you could just address that, taking into account some of the things I've raised, and because of which this, the pressure on tourism is also happening, because we are concentrated in one part of Goa without it actually moving into other areas which are far quieter, more beautiful, and so on and so forth.
Now, if you look at the topography of Goa, it's such a beautiful state, because you got a coastal belt and then you get down into the Western Ghats as you go in. And also with regards to the monuments and things which are available with man-made structures as well as nature-provided structures, it's so beautifully that it does not have to be only on the coastal belt. So people, if they want to do something, they have to go down to the hinterlands.
But what are the challenges that you face in the sense that if in so many years, why have we not managed to get that balance right?
The major challenge that we face with regards to domestic tourists is they do not consider the hinterlands of Goa as a part of Goa. Like for example, if they come down towards the jungle area, they might stay one night and then they'll say the next day, we want to go to Goa. Well, I say, Baba, this is Goa. But for them, Goa means the beach.
Right. Okay. No, but tell me, in the sense that, as we were discussing before it started, that even before the whole phrase hinterland tourism was coined, you took that plunge and, went into the jungles and did that. Why did you, or how did you see potential there? Purely from a tourism and, your love for the jungles apart. In the sense that why did you think it would make economic sense to even go there?
Basically, it was my passion, which was nature, which led into my business.
Right.
So I capitalized on this because I became a supplier for most of this travel agents. When they wanted anything to do with the hinterlands, they think of me.
Right.
Now, the reason why you were saying that why the people were not coming is because for them, they were only concerned along the beach side. So for them, especially with regards to the domestic tourist is concerned. But the foreign tourists, once in their stay of 10 days or 20 days, whichever they're staying, they want to do some activity. They want to go somewhere, experience a part of Goa, and that's where they used to come down to the hinterlands, and we used to provide them all this type of the actual part of Goa, the real, step back in time sort of thing.
Okay. Mark, I'll just flag something else. When we are looking at tourism strategies, what the government seems to be doing is thinking very big. In the sense that infrastructures, highways, ropeways, and so on and so forth, convention centers, and with crores and crores of spending getting into it. So have we lost a trick somewhere, in the sense that was Goa meant for it? If you compare Goa with other kind of countries or places of the same nature, they are not kind of overexposing those areas with, bombarding them with so much infrastructure. So are we having a bombardment of infrastructure which is detrimental to the intrinsic charm that Goa has?
So I'd like to add to what you've said. Primarily, and this is where the government as well as the private sector is looking at, is something called market segmentation. So looking at the entire tourism scale, you segmentize the market. Those who would want something which is more mature and those who would want something which is palatable. Besides market segmentation, there's also product segmentation. So product segmentation could be from historical culture, heritage, or even beach tourism. Once you get that mix right and you're able to focus on it, you would have an array of products which can, if one fails, the other one will always support you. When you're talking about development, I mean, when you look at it from a larger perspective, certain amount of development, and I'm not saying that we need to destroy everything that we have, a certain amount of development will be required, whether it is building broader roads, so it is going to take away a few trees.
Right.
If you want to build a small accommodation, it's going to take away a certain amount of things. So that balance between development and maintaining the ecology and the sustainability of a destination is important. What is very important to understand is that the United Nations SDG 30, which is a sustainable development program, which is there for 2030, has been applied as far as development is concerned, and one of them is the Mopa Airport.
Right.
The SDG 30 has been applied at Mopa Airport. They have mandated by that, both from the Supreme Court as well as from UNWTO and IACO. So to answer your question, definitely there has to be a balance, and if we do not segmentize the market, we will not get that balance right, and I think that's very, very important.
Siddharth, again in terms of tourism strategy, I'll ask you the same question that I asked him, with specific reference to the kind of development that we are having in the hospitality space. Now what's happening there is, you have a large number of hotels coming up. You have 3-star hotels coming up, 4-star hotels coming up. If you see the number of hotel chains that have come into Goa, there's been a huge exponential advancement. Now, do we have enough footfalls to cover those, the inventory of so many rooms? That's number one. Number two, again, aren't we putting that much of pressure back into that specific radius of the coastal belt? And because of which it is having other issues. For instance, environment issues, water issues, problems with people, and so on and so forth. So my issue is that is all the planning of tourism happening according to a particular plan, or is it still very ad hoc and completely dependent on who the concerned minister is, or who what the government wants at that particular time, rather than following a template?
So I think, Sujoy, over a period of time, Goa tourism has in a way dug ourselves into a hole by only promoting the coastal experience.
Yes.
You talk, and like you said at the beginning, Goa and tourism have been synonymous for decades.
Yes.
But when you talk about tourism and Goa, you're only talking, like Joseph mentioned, sea and sand and beach and alcohol, and that's the typical experience. I mean, he pioneered hinterland tourism.
Right.
But I was actually surprised to know that only about 4% of Goa's land mass is sea facing.
Right.
So much more is hinterland tourism.
Yes.
So when you talk about pressure on supply, the hotels all coming up there, therefore the pressure on infrastructure, it's because everyone is trying to cater to the tourists' current expectation of Goa, which is beachfront. So hotels want to be near the beach or close to coastal areas. I mean, GTDC had this beautiful location at Maya Lake,
That's right.
which they were
That's
looking
right.
at giving out to private players. I think there was very lukewarm interest, and even now,
That's a very
Nilesh
important point
might
you
know
made,
the latest status, but no one's picked it up. It's still lying developed.
Right.
So the pressure will always remain if we are going to focus all our energies and attention on a very, very small chunk of what is a beautiful destination.
Right.
And at this point, I want to also give the example of a place like Bali.
Right.
Very similar to Goa in size, in type of tourists, in location, topography. Yes, there is a Kuta, yes, there is a Seminyak, the buzzing Kalangut Baga kind of areas.
Right.
But there's also an Ubud, which is completely hinterland. There is no beach anywhere close, in fact on a hill. But the focus there is on culture, on artists. Tourists come there to go on artists' walks.
I see.
Okay.
Okay.
I went there and I looked at it and thought, wow, this is like Ponda, for example.
Indeed.
The temples,
100%.
Yes.
it's very similar. The spice farms, the temples. How many tourists come to Goa and go to Ponda? And who is therefore to blame? We blame sometimes the tourist who blindly runs to Kalangut and Baga. Who has driven him there?
That's right.
I think it's a number of strategies over decades
Correct.
that says beach, and therefore everyone's going there. You tell me about a Ponda, you tell me about Sakli, or you tell me about some other places inside, I might want to go as a tourist.
Yeah, that brings us to, I'll just come to you because as a direct response to that. So it all boils down to proper communication, one, and secondly strategy. Now, if you could just tell us, Nileshji, in terms of a tourism policy, every time we talk of tourism policy, every tourism minister who comes talks about a tourism policy. Now, it's become such a cliche that nobody even takes that whole activity very seriously. Now, when will we have a policy that we...
See, basically, we have to understand, Goa is today Goa because of its people, and we industry is unorganically developed on its own. It
Right.
was not the strategy-wise that this is what we wanted
Correct.
to do, that is
Right.
we wanted to. Now we have reached
No, I just
a-
want to get one thing correctly, just for our viewers. Is there a formal tourism policy in place or not? Notified?
Notified means policy means what we are talking about. Means what is the next step we want to take?
No,
towards
we'll talk about that later. I'm just saying, even as a basic process exercise, has the Department of Tourism and the government rolled out a tourism policy and said, look, this is our official tourism policy, and notified it and given it?
In fact, that's what they want to come out with. They have come out with, and that's what they want to discuss it further. Means implementation.
But
That's
there's
what
no,
happened.
there is, as of today, you're confirming that there is no...
There is a policy in place. There
Not
is policy
notified.
in place. No, it's notified. It is notified. But what happens is, certain things are not, aggressively which way it has to be looked into. Like when we say notified, then everybody should be aware of certain things.
Exactly, correct.
So
correct.
which is not there. That's I agree. Now, on the point on that Goa, as first we have to do our basics right. Basics right is why people are coming to Goa. They are coming for, suppose, forget about the hinterland to they are coming right now for sun, sand and sea. They are coming for beach. Now, how many of even the domestic tourists, which are middle class, upper middle class, are going to Kalangut Baga area? Nobody is going there. Why they are not going there? Forget about Goans going. Goans are not going only there. But even tourists are showing the back.
Correct.
So,
but it's still very crowded. So
the
people are
crowded
going.
means that is what happens. A particular segment is just
Different segment.
going out,
Yes,
and
correct.
it is not far where others will also start moving in.
Right.
So what we have to do is our basics right, in sense that cleanliness, hygiene, which are we talk daily time. Like if you beach cleaning, they give it to the agency. The beach are clean. You move out. Panchayat areas are dirty. They say that is not our
Domain.
domain.
Yes.
So there is no coordination between, which of course we have talked to, and hopefully in a month's time, in few months, we'll have some solution for that, wherein there is a nodal officer which will be seeing overall the cleaning processes of Goa. Now sewage we are talking about, because ultimately it boils down to, when we are talking about talking about the locals getting agitated. Now sewage. Now they have put sewage line in Kalangut Baga for how many years back?
That's
8,
right.
10 years back.
Yes.
Till now it is not activated. Similarly, in Panjim or Talegaon side, because they are see, ultimately in Goa, somewhere or other people are related to tourism.
Right.
Like if you talk about, say, Talegaon, that area, we say where there are tourists, but there is an infrastructure for people who are working in tourism industry.
Yes.
To give example, these casinos which are there, they employ suppose 12,000 people. They take the flats which are
That's
held by
correct.
Goans outside, which are almost
Yes.
500 plus flats.
Yes,
So
yes.
what I'm trying to say is that ultimately it boils down to total Goan overall per se as infrastructure is concerned. So those basics needs to be done right. Of course, MOPA, it is already done. Then you have this north-south connectivity. Now again, when MOPA is coming in, see what happens, there has to be planning in total. Now once MOPA starts, everybody knows there's going to be bottleneck from Parvarim coming in. And
that flyover will take at least 7 years to make.
so we
Yes,
don't know
yes.
how many years. So what happens when you knew that it's happening? So why it was not planned? It was there in the book.
Master plan.
Because of
Yeah.
some maybe whatever be the reason, it was kept back burner. Now it is brought in. Now this type of ad hoc things overall affects tourism in big way.
Correct, correct.
Now we are talking of hinterland tourism. Now government has last year allocated 5 crores for developing hinterland tourism circuit. So now one of the circuit is Ponda, then you have in Diwar. So our take was on that we should not push certain things because department wants or tourism department wants. It has to be people centric. If community there in village, if they want something which is tourism related, which can benefit them, then do it.
No, again, so I'll go back to the question. I take all your points on board. So from whatever you are saying, can't we very fairly conclude that it all boils down to a proper policy encompassing all these issues not being there? For instance, all these aspects, infrastructure, roads, flyovers, it should all come under the overall universe of tourism planning.
Absolutely. It has to come. Like
So right now there is no
of course,
document.
this is not in your domain, but
Yes.
now you see the Imagine Panjim or Smart Panjim.
Yes.
We see the ad hoc which is happening.
Absolutely,
So
correct.
it is the same thing happening at this. It's not that it's not possible. In fact, Goa can be most ideal state. Among the cleanliness, we were 220th Panjim city, 220th in the country.
Correct.
Place like Indore, where
Is the cleanest city in the country
We are
now,
going.
yes.
We say whatever people. We have psych. Some people have
Yes.
got psych. But you see, it is a third or fourth or fifth year in continuous cleanest city in India.
In India, yes.
So that we have to learn something from there. And main thing is, as you have said, planning when it has to be in toto. And like see Donapal, for instance, being a tourist place, you see that the place which it is being come out to be. It was earlier tourist place for everyone. Again, I would like to come on the why we are just stick to beaches. Like initially, I remember when I started my business way back in 90s, there used to be North Goa and South Goa tour. In North Goa tour, there were of course certain places, but there were temples were shown, there were churches were shown. Now that is not existing only. So what happens is overall, even for that matter, river cruise. Earlier river cruise Goan culture programs were showcased. Now it is shifted to
And in the river cruises, you have Bollywood music blaring.
So what I'm saying is we have to get back to our culture.
Correct.
We have to project that, and it is repeated process. See, customer, we need to give what customer wants today, but we have to say customer, we also have this with us, and this is our culture. And if you promote it in right perspective, I think we'll have a good traction for. Like experiential tourism,
Yes.
we have a lot of complaints in this area. You are aware of it.
Yes.
Now that new millennium
In fact, I
crowd,
had a full-fledged debate on this last week. Only on Fanteri.
new millennium crowd,
Yes.
which is born after 2000 or late 90s, they want experiential tourism. So they are not stuck to Sun and sea. Besides that, they are already looking into the experiential part of
Okay,
it.
okay.
One is the heritage walk.
Right.
So similarly, I think we are reaching towards
We are
that.
getting
It is
to that,
how
okay.
we market
Okay.
ourselves, how we position ourselves, as Mark just said.
Joseph, before we take a break, last one important issue that I'd like to know from you. In your so many years that you've been a stakeholder and contributed to it, how have you seen the basic nature of the tourist change? In the sense that we talk of tourism, but if you could just kind of analyze the change in the tourists themselves. What kind of tourists used to come to Goa earlier? What has now changed? What do tourists expect now that they didn't expect earlier, and so on and so forth?
Initially, we had a lot of people who used to spend a lot of money.
Domestic.
International. The inbound tourists.
Okay.
The foreign tourists.
Right.
Over a period of time, that
That's gone
expenditure
down.
has gone down. Even for example, they would go into a village, which we would take them, they would give a lot of tips. Today the tip it doesn't exist anymore, because most of the guides also which they work, they just don't work for the salary, they work for the service they give.
Right.
And the better the service they give, they got rewarded. So that way, in one way, the expenditure of the foreign tourists has also got down.
Right.
On the other hand, with regards to domestic tourists who never knew anything about the hinterlands ever, or never looked at it at all, have now started slowly exploring that area. That too more for day trips.
Right.
Not to
There are very few
basically
people are staying overnight.
Staying
there.
the nights over there.
Okay.
And as I explained to you, I've got a property where people come and stay for 1 night or 2 nights, and then they say we want to go to Goa.
Right.
For them, they want to party. They basically come to Goa is to enjoy themselves.
Right.
You know, recently I'd gone down to Dama and Diu, and I have seen most of the people from Gujarat, they would go there for
To
a
drink and come
weekend
back.
just to get drunk.
Yes.
And
But tell me, when you're talking of infrastructure in the hinterland,
Yeah.
has it actually grown? See, you may have got a resort.
there has
but
been.
Suppose a tourist goes there and spends the day in the jungles, comes
Yes,
back.
yes.
Does he have anything to do in the evening, or does he just read a book and?
no, there's a lot of things to do. That's what for us to get the people to the jungles, we have to be innovative.
Right.
We have to create something because people come here also to enjoy. They come not just to study or something.
Correct.
They go and they really actually have to have fun.
Right.
Fine. At least with us, we have a no music policy.
Right.
Okay. So we have the cultural events which happen, the cultural dancing which happens.
Okay.
With people from the state of Goa, as well as there are a lot of outside laborers now coming into, like, Biharis and West Bengal people. So those cultures are also
Coming in.
fused into our culture.
Right.
And that's when they actually because they come to India. Finally, they come to India.
Absolutely correct.
It's not with the foreign tourists. And the Indian tourists, they come, but then they want the music.
Right. Okay.
They want to party with
Sure.
music, which is a little bit tricky to handle.
I'll begin by looking into one subject, of course, which evokes a lot of mixed reaction. How expensive has Goa become, or has it? And the whole discussion is necessarily about firstly taxis that are hugely expensive, and we'll get into a separate section on taxis as well. Our hotel rooms are getting more and more expensive as time goes by. Of course, there is a section that feels that the market fuels this kind of a demand. But the point here is that there are a lot of rooms, there are a lot of hotels, prices are going up, and of course the number of footfalls and occupancy rates are not really going lower. But what does it tell us? Does it tell us that Goa is attracting a certain segment of high-end tourists looking at a specific kind of accommodation, restricting themselves only to their hotels and resorts, eating in the same kind of restaurants in that whole belt of, say, Morji, Asagaon, and Anjuna and other places? So has it all become about that? Is the tourism pie concentrated in that particular zone, not only in terms of activities, but in terms of where you stay, where you eat, and so on and so forth? I'll start with you, Siddharth, as somebody who understands this, having run a hotel very successfully. What do you feel about this?
See, firstly, it's a demand and supply equation. For every hotel that is charging what we believe is an expensive rate, there are enough people taking that expensive rate, which is why the hotel is able to get away with it.
Right.
I think it's about making hay while the sun shines. And I think the belt you mentioned, Asagaon, Anjuna, etc., it's created a bit of a polarizing effect as far as tourists are concerned.
Right.
There is a bunch of tourists that want to be close to it, and then it's creating another bunch of tourists that want to stay as far away as possible from that, for want of a better word, chaos over there.
Yes.
So that's giving more opportunity to hotels close and far from that location, from the hub, if I may use that word, to do well. Hotels for a long time now have taken a leaf out of airlines books and got into dynamic pricing. Sometimes it's funny, even today governments use words like rack rate.
Right.
Even a 2-star hotel no longer has a rack rate. Rack rates are obsolete.
Right.
So, as a dynamic pricing policy, if you can get your hotel sold out at 10,000, you'll push it to 12,000. If it gets sold out at 12,000, you push it to 15. You just push the envelope till the market can say no more.
Right.
The fact that Goa hotels are doing as well as they are, and remember, post-pandemic, clearly in India, but probably from a global perspective, Goa had one of the best recoveries in the hospitality space. What did that come from? It came from that pent-up demand. It came from that new word that got coined called revenge tourism.
Yes.
Revenge tourism, however, in my opinion, has a limited shelf life. And I think we're seeing the end of that shelf life.
Right.
Because everyone who was desperate for a holiday, everyone who was desperate to finish up their pending, wedding plans or family reunions or whatever, has finished it now.
Right.
Now comes the real challenge for hotels, and the question really is, can they sustain what we are talking about as expensive or perceived as expensive? Can they sustain it in the long term? That really, I think this winter will show us, because we keep talking about pre-pandemic levels. Hotels say, oh, we are back to pre-pandemic level. I just want to remind everyone, pre-pandemic, it's not that everything was rosy.
Right.
It was still a challenge to sell Goa as a destination. There were still very real problems, infrastructure-wise, marketing-wise, perception-wise. It's not that 2019 everything was hunky-dory and then the pandemic hit. So when you say pre-pandemic, I'm really asking, is that the level you want to be at? Are you happy being at pre-pandemic level? I think the pain of the last 2 years has made us forget the pain of pre-pandemic also.
Right. The other issue I'd like to flag before broadening this is the issue of taxis, and I know we have a lot to talk about that, and that has fundamentally become a big challenge. Taxis and the allied issue of mobility in Goa when a tourist comes in. And that has actually led to a lot of other issues. Of course, it's opened up the rental car market in a big way and other things. But the fact that the taxi lobby, and I'm using a more civilized word when I use the word lobby, the taxi lobby is actually managed to kind of ensure that they keep back and push back any attempts to bring in either app-based taxis or have a proper transportation system where you can get into any transport that you want and move out. The point here is that, do you feel that it has come to a stage right now? Of course, now the Chief Minister and the Transport Minister all speaking in unison about app-based taxis, but it may be too little, too late, given the damage that's already happened so far. How far do you think the issue of unregulated taxis and the huge prices charged by taxis has actually dampened Goa tourism?
So I want to actually start by sounding optimistic. I'm really happy to hear the government talk in one voice, talk about supporting app-based taxis, because for years we didn't really have consensus on that topic.
Right.
It's not that easy to create a local taxi app. I mean, that the Ubers and Olas of the world wouldn't be as successful as they were.
That's right.
If every bunch of taxi people in one location could set up an Uber-like version of themselves.
Correct.
It's not that simple. So I'm glad at least there's talk now about bringing in apps. But it constantly amazes me that one small lobby, and I'm using the same civilized word that you used, can hold an entire state to ransom.
Right.
With the frequency that they have and the ferocity that they have. We've had taxi strikes in the middle of peak season.
Correct.
We've had, taxis blocking hotel gates. As a hospitality person, I can comment on that.
Yes.
It's surprising that such a small lobby, and when you talk numbers, it is a very small number that can hold, so much of Goa to ransom over this. So I really hope that talk translates to action as far as government talking about app-based taxis is concerned. For a tourist destination, and like we were talking earlier, directly or indirectly, a majority of Goa is dependent on tourism.
Right.
So if you're not going to facilitate easy movement for tourists, it's going to lead to increase in rentals. It's going to increase, like we're already seeing, self-driven tourists coming in.
That's right.
And that's causing, traffic issues on our
Large
roads.
number of people, especially...
You try driving on the highway on Friday or on Sunday, and there's traffic in one way or the other, clogging the traffic, the roads, because people are driving in from Bombay and from Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc. Why are they doing that? Because we've become notorious for don't trust the taxis in Goa. Bring your own car.
Right.
So there's several direct and indirect benefits to making some progress there.
Mark, your views on two things that we flagged. One on, is Goa becoming too expensive? And secondly, how much has this actually damaged? And shouldn't the taxi issue have been put in place as a matter of policy rather than leaving it to individual negotiations between ministers and MLAs and the taxi lobby?
So I must say that the taxi issue is a thorn in the flesh, not only for tourism but for Goa per se. Because it's a statement that is not liked by anybody. And transportation is the key factor to tourism. If you do not have a fluid or a concentrated, smooth transportation system, then you're missing the point completely.
Yes.
You've added other issues over there wherein people come in with their own vehicles into Goa. It adds to pressure on the infrastructure. It adds to pollution, which is again what we don't want. So I think if we can resolve that issue and bring some seamless understanding between the institution, the taxi union and the private sector, that would be the best for all of us. Coming to the pricing issue,
yes,
as my colleague mentioned, that it is a demand and a supply issue. Fortunately or unfortunately, this will continue because you are again having issues with getting visas to travel abroad.
Right.
You're even having issues of airline pricing being difficult to go. So that international traveler he's now hibernating back again in Goa.
Right.
And with that demand continuing, the hotel prices will continue. Until and unless the international market does not open to the levels that they were in 2017 and 2018, we will continue to see the pricing. Or if the infrastructure numbers changes in Goa and we have larger number of hotels, which doesn't happen overnight, we will see a drop in prices. That's my point of view.
DG, why can't Goa lay more stress on 3-star hotels and other hotels and then more eco-friendly hotels and so on and so forth in different places? I mean, why have we not got it right?
No, basically when we talk about eco, like we talk about Mayam Lake, or we talk about even the GTDC having trying.
No, I'm talking of smaller boutique hotels, even in the coastal belt. Even in the coastal belt, you can have different kinds of accommodation.
See, there are two things. First, it has to be economical viable when somebody is putting in money. So basically, if you see in hilly regions, you have small hotel, 15 rooms, 20 rooms, it is viable. But a place like Goa, with the type of land cost and other infrastructure, it is not viable for them to have a smaller hotel.
Right.
Now you have the smaller hotels in Goa, which was like earlier old timer in Anjuna or Baga side, which were like homestays type of a thing. So it is a challenging to operate a small inventory. First of all, marketing is a challenging, and even if you see the trend among the hoteliers in Goa, people which were family run are now run by the international groups.
Chains and all.
Chains.
Yes.
So basically, it is a difficult marketing is a difficult aspect, and then the revenue also. If you are with the right placement in the market, then you get better revenues.
Right.
So smaller hotels have a challenge, and it will remain unless you try. Like even there are certain hotels in and around which are boutique in nature, but they have a challenge in marketing those aspects. Except for foreign tourists, it may be it is picked up quite easily. But with the domestic tourists right now, it is challenging. And I think it is depends upon how we position ourselves. This is also what we have. So over the period of time, I'm sure we'll have that type of people also who wants to stay in that type of hotel. Like if you want to go to Rajasthan, you want to stay in Haveli.
Yes.
So that place is not there in Goa, that we have a smaller boutique hotel which are have very old heritage in nature, which are there few of them which can be picked up or which are done up accordingly.
No, but what about homestays? In fact, see what has happened is even Airbnb are being opened by people who would normally be running hotels. But the quintessential format of Airbnb, where you have smaller homes, you have nice homestays with 2 or 3 rooms, that's not developing in a big way in Goa, barring a few maybe in South Goa and other places.
No. Basically, if you see today, the people who are coming from like the industry's main challenge or main conflict was this. We have this of small hotels which were coming in, which were marketed easily on the thing, 2 rooms, 3 rooms,
Right.
and it is taking into the main segment of the hotel industry, which he pays commercial taxes, commercial electricity, commercial water, and all other charges. While people who are staying there, like homestay means what? The concept is that you should be staying next to that house and you rent it out.
Right.
Now it is not, that concept is not there.
Right.
You have the second home which you want to give on a rent. So that segment, if you go to see now, after a lot of push, they have made it compulsory that if anybody wants to market on any of these portals, they require Goa tourism license. So you will be surprised when the pandemic happened, the overall hotel was around 3,500 registered.
Right.
Today it must have touched 4, 5 or maybe touching 5. These are all specifically smaller hotels, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, which are now, because unless they register, they can't market.
Right.
So basically it's there, it's not there in Goa. And it is actually like now we have this villa concept which are coming in.
Right.
And now you see the branded chains also getting into that. Now there is a big requirement in that in Goa right now.
Right.
As Mark just said, unless the international market opens fully up, and even the pricing is so high going abroad. So Goa people prefer because you have best of infrastructure. You'll be surprised in month of October, November, the villas which are 2 lakhs plus or above 1.5 lakh are all sold out in Goa.
Right.
So that indicates that there is a lot of traction for Indian tourists coming into Goa, specifically as far as a domestic thing is concerned, and as far as also on the pricing is concerned. Of course, it is a market forces which derives thing, and it is there here to stay for some time.
This kind of pricing.
Yes, because now it's not only the tourists which are coming in, there are a lot of weddings which are coming in.
Right.
Because what has happened, when COVID came in, the groups became smaller.
Yeah, that's a huge segment.
Huge segment.
Yes.
Then you have a MICE which is just opening up.
Yes.
And with the, of course, convention center coming in next to Paratan Bhavan
Here,
for
correct.
1300 capacity. There will be a lot of advantage for smaller hotels. And in Panjim per se, you have the casinos. You'll be surprised. I would like to add the figure. You have around 12,000 seats, flights coming into Goa.
Daily.
Roughly. Out of which 3,500 to 4,000 are people who are directly or indirectly coming in the casino.
Casino tourists, yes.
So which is a huge market. So any hotels in Panjim today, which was selling for X, it is, you don't get the rooms.
Right.
The smallest of hotel you are not getting. So basically the demand has, the people who are going neighboring, I don't know for, everybody wants to come to Goa.
Okay, now coming to the taxi issue, because the thing is that is something that you all have, TTAG has dealt with in a very strong way. If I'm not mistaken, you all went to court also against this. So the point here is that couldn't the TTAG have been a little more aggressive with the government to tell them, look, this is completely ruining our business, and even to this day the issue is still not sorted out.
See, basically that requires political will. I'll tell you, in 2008, they were not allowing to pick up the guests from the hotel.
That's right. Yes.
So we went to court in 2008.
That's
this is
right.
recent case.
Right.
So there, the choice of transport, selection, which transport I want to take, court had to direct government that they cannot stop anyone. Supreme Court had to direct, High Court, that they cannot they can pick up guests from any of the, wherever they want to.
Right.
But still, we have those bottlenecks where we have that challenge. Even now, we went it that taxi meters were not allowed.
Right.
Correct? So government said that we'll pay for taxis. When election time, many of the MLAs paid from their pocket for taxis.
Right.
And till now, they are not utilizing meters. So now, only thing which is left is bringing the competitive pricing. So unless you bring in that, things are not going to change.
No, but this was the absolute defiance of the court.
Absolutely, defense of the court,
Yes.
defense of the RTO law. So basically, because somebody is making noise, you take them as a lobby. You tell me how many Goans have their own taxis which are driving. They have 2 to 3 taxis, and these are people from in and around states, outside states are driving the taxis.
Right.
It is myth that it's only Goans which are driving, and it is this is there. And of course, there are a lot of other things also involved, wherein we see the government servants are also having their own taxes which are run by things. So there is lot of, it is very complex issue, and if it is a political will is there, I think it can be resolved. As Saukar just said, if government has said that we are, in fact, when we met Chief Minister first time when he took over, he said in 3 months we'll resolve.
Right. Which
Now,
Chief Minister was this? The current
Chief Minister,
Yes.
as current Chief Minister.
Yes.
So now it's more than 3 months. Now, fortunately, it looks like, fortunately for us, Transport Minister, everybody is talking in the same language.
Right.
Transport Minister is assured that he wants to bring in the app-based taxi. To start with, he's saying that
It'll
Ola
happen at
Uber will
Mopa.
have from
Mopa.
which
Yes.
is a good sign. And here you have this Goa Miles, which will be reactivated.
Right.
Now the challenge is specifically when you go in the hotels, if I get taxis from outside, they should be allowed. It
Right.
cannot be said that you have to take from there.
Correct.
They have the dynamics where they can see that this first preference is given to those taxis.
Yes.
So the taxi drivers also has to understand that competition is here to stay. Technology is here to stay. Today, even shopkeepers can say that we don't want
That's true. Correct.
online this because they're killing on our business. Like I'm into travel and business. My business got affected with portals coming in around 20 years back. But
Correct.
still we are there because we have to manage with things and improve on your thought process.
Correct. Okay. You were saying that government servants also run taxis.
Yes, they have the taxis which are in place.
Okay.
So, and which are, are there privately placed or whichever way. Because there are many people who require
Right.
transportation, I will not like to name XYZ, but they require at many places they require. So, what happens is, the situation is such a complex, and it is, unless there is a political will, this cannot be resolved. But one thing is very clear. TTAG is firm on this, that it will take to logical conclusion, because meter was a thing which we brought it to conclusion, but pricing is not the thing which association
Right.
and I want to change the narrative. Why we always talk about, when we talk about transport, about tourists, it is not locals we are not
That's
getting
so true.
affected.
That's so
We
true.
had recently accident.
I'm glad you made this point.
Accident
actually.
on the bridge.
Yes.
Do you think it would have been possible if there was a reasonable taxis
Absolutely.
available?
And
We see
also-
so many accidents happening.
Correct. And you also need, good you made this point, because
No, we keep talking about tourists when you talk about taxis.
Because-
Absolutely no. I would like to make, like yesterday,
Sure.
Minister made a statement
Yes.
that is a bars this thing.
That's right.
First, you improve on the transport first.
And then-
you
and
allow
then tell
the
yes,
proper
yes.
transport thing. You don't have to tell bar owners, the people who's drinking. Nobody wants to risk their life by driving on the road.
That's correct.
They will start taking.
in
like
Bombay, nobody drives after
Like
drinking.
Mumbai, if you go,
Correct.
if they are going for, like they're going to have a drink, there will be one person who is without
Is a designated driver.
designated, no, who is not drinking among
Right.
the group.
Sure.
Or they will see that they hire a taxi and
That's
go.
right. Correct.
And it is a norm which they follow because nobody wants to risk their life.
Absolutely true.
So
correct.
which government has to also realize they will do a local favor big time if they allow taxis to, like today, if you want a taxi from your home,
Right.
is it possible unless you
Not
have
at
some
all.
call someone?
And,
So what?
and even Goa,
he may not be there available.
Goa mines, with all due respect to them, they must be having certain issues. We
Yeah.
always get complaints of availability of cars not being there, or
Yes.
people taking time, and
So,
that's been
so
happening.
basically, it's very clear. There has to be competitive. Unless there is a competition, things will not. Like even this high pricing
Right.
can come down if there is a better, with more inventory available. There is a better competition.
Correct.
The hotels which are not in the list, if they are bought in the front, I think the rates will.
No, I'm
rationalize.
glad you actually raised this whole issue of bars and other things. The point is, if you have a proper infrastructure and have available cabs on call, then you won't even need bars to take the responsibility.
And
of
that is the
taking
opportunity
customers
for
from them.
taxi drivers to
Yes.
make more business,
That's right.
which they are not realizing. Now, unfortunately, in fact, we have been talking and everything is in public domain.
Yes.
They want one trip for in 2 days and
That's right.
sit at home. That will not work anymore. That's very clear.
John, two things. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the taxi issue because that's really burning. Secondly, before we wind up the discussion, see, when we talk of hinterland tourism and expansion there, as somebody who's been working in that area for a long time, what would you like to see in terms of basic infrastructure coming up to make you do your job better? So address both these parts.
Basic infrastructure is required in a big way. The population of India is growing. Transportation with Goa is concerned is very bad. The app-based taxis would really solve the problem, not just for tourists, for Goans as well. Infrastructure is required, but it has to be well planned. Sustainable development is a must. Now, in the hinterlands, especially like my main place is basically the Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary. There is a very famous waterfall known as Dudhsagar. Now, with Dudhsagar, the carrying capacity is only about 1,680 people a day maximum.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because there are about 240 vehicles which are allowed to go down to the waterfalls. I had suggested this, that they should increase it from dawn to dusk. Now what happens is, it's run by the forest department.
Okay.
The forest departments come to work at around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. So they open the gates and then they close it at 6 o'clock. So this, if it's open like how the ASI monuments are, from dawn to dusk, if they open it early morning and they control, the most important thing is control, because it is a sanctuary and a national park. Now there are animals in it, even if it's an ant, it's an animal. And when you speed up to give the supply, it will kill this ant.
Right.
So if you have a way wherein you monitor the vehicle which enters in, say at 6 o'clock,
Needs to come out at
it has to reach the end point, which is 10 kilometers, only at 7.
Okay.
If he reaches at
Early.
6:45, that means the guy was speeding. Fine him. Give the person sufficient time, not just 1 hour, because he's spending $3,500.
Correct.
He needs to enjoy himself. So
Right.
give him 2 hours over there.
Right.
Same thing on the way back. So in one vehicle will take approximately around 4 hours.
Right.
And this, instead of having 240 jeeps, if you allow them from dawn to dusk and monitor only one vehicle every minute, in 1 hour you carry 60 vehicles.
Right.
Increase. Now see the amount of tourists that come to India. You see we've got about 1.5 billion people. The amount of domestic tourists only coming to India is so huge.
So you're saying with this model, more people can go in.
More people can go in.
Right.
When that supply is more than the demand,
Right.
automatically the price will go down. So this will control the issues with regards to the jungles are concerned, one part of the thing.
Right.
Secondly, people traveling from here, like say for example, if a taxi has to go to Dudhsagar waterfall, they charge about 3,000 bucks. 3,000 rupees
right.
for a taxi just to take you there and bring you back another 3,000, 3,500. 7,000 bucks.
So to go to Dudhsagar and back, you're spending 7,000
No, I'm
rupees?
talking about the taxi charges approximately. Around 3,000.
So just to reach there and back is 7,500.
No, to take you
3,000.
and you come back in the same vehicle,
Yeah.
it's about 3,000, 3,500
Okay.
rupees.
Okay.
But if you're dropped there, you see a person wants to go, he wants to experience the hinterlands.
Suppose he doesn't take a return.
Doesn't take
He's
a
taking
return.
taxis both ways.
Like you're talking about increasing the infrastructure,
Right.
creating homestays in the nature or plantation stays or
If
nature
you're not
stays.
returning and wanting to stay the
A
night
person
and
has
come
to
back.
go there.
Then you're not
Right. Then you're
spending
paying for 4 trips
Yes,
actually,
yes,
up, down, up, down.
Yes, yes.
So this app-based taxis will also help.
Right.
Also the vehicles which are from the hinterlands, it's now it's only concentrated, the taxis are only concentrated along the beach belt.
Right.
Why shouldn't we in the hinterlands benefit from this?
Sure.
So app-based taxis will also benefit in that angle. This is what I feel.
And what are the other infrastructural improvements you would need in
Improvement
the
of
larger
infra-
area? In Ponda, Dharbandura, that whole taluk.
Now what has happened is hinterlands, like for example, they've got a lot of nature. It's got a lot of nature. So in that comes the forest department comes into play. So there are, like for example, if you go down next to Old Goa, they've got a beautiful creek known as the Karambolium Creek, and there are crocodiles over there. The Magar crocodile is there. Even if you create, even if the government creates a sort of a ferry service by going in non-motorized boats,
Right.
okay, because when we had started, we used to go rowing.
Right.
And then when the motorized boat started, we moved out from that. We gave up that. So motorized boats, if you have non-motorized boats, silent boats, they can enjoy nature. They've got such a beautiful bird life over there.
Correct.
You enjoy that.
That has not
Plus,
been explored at all, the Karamboli Lake.
it was. But then what happened was they were the crocs were disturbed.
Right,
There were
right.
plastic bottles being thrown at them, thinking that they are made of artificial. Because when they're busking in the sun, they just relax, you know.
Right.
So you feel like it's like a toy which
And they
is
started
kept over there.
chucking bottles at
chucking
them.
bottles at them.
Sad.
So these are the things which should stop, and that has to be monitored. Like for the example, bird watching, Karambolim Lake is there. Such a beautiful. You build towers with the government getting involved with it.
Sure.
You know, by creating the infrastructure for them. Likewise, you go down to Ponda. Ponda's got such lovely places. You create a nice walk
Right.
along Ponda. You know, a heritage walk with the temples, because most of the temples which are in Ponda were the temples which were along the coastal belt at one point of time.
Of course, yes.
They have
they
been
were moved.
rebuilt.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there you have a beautiful cultural walk, or even the e-bikes which are there,
That's
which are
coming
only
up now,
over
sir.
here. That
Right.
can be brought in over
Right.
there. Then you go down more further down towards the Dudhsagar River. Beautiful river. You know, you can start. You can't do rafting in an adventurous way. You can do it in the monsoons because there are a lot of bandaras.
Right.
So that thing can be exploited. You can
Do-
put in a
do
lot of
that, yes.
ideas. The mines, the mines which are there.
Correct.
You know, rejuvenate those mines.
Absolutely,
by
correct.
creating
That's a
the
huge
forest
space there.
department.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you create adventure sports in it. You put ATVs in it, for example.
correct.
Or you even have like how this rainforest adventures and all these
Absolutely,
guys
correct.
are there. You create this sort of adventurous circuits in the mines.
Mines, yes.
They'll make more money. Those miners will make more money than actually selling iron ore.
But this is what
Correct.
requires
This is
out of box
innovative
thinking
thinking.
and do it.
Correct,
In fact, these are models which have been successful. Like in Korea, you had a mining area which was closed totally.
Right.
Now. So to promote that mining area, they came with the idea wherein they said, okay, you can build up a casino there without any restrictions, and they created as a tourist place.
Correct.
Similarly, what he's saying, if you have a mining area, yes, and they created a snow that they get the snow in particular season.
Right.
So they created that full circuit where you can go
Skiing.
on the skiing,
Right.
on those tracks type of thing. Go on top, come then. In the monsoon, in the snow season, it is used as for going for skiing, taking the
I see.
equipments.
Right.
Otherwise, it is just a trip. So these things are successful models, and I think it is just a matter of that how you look at things and what you want
So, you know,
to.
another thing is, which is very important, is in regards to the waterfalls. Dudhsagar. I'm after the government, it's the forest department for years to open trekking.
Right. Right.
Now, trekking or walking is a fundamental right of any citizen.
Sure.
Which is being stopped no sooner the jeep start.
Okay. So once the jeep start, you can't walk.
You can't. They don't allow you to.
That's really unfair.
Yeah, this is very unfair. So this is what I am fighting with the government all the time. I'm asking them, please do a permanent. Like for example, I'll give you. I went to the Amazons. For 9 days, I spent for a 9 days trip. I paid $1,200, wherein I could fly down the Amazon in a helicopter for $500.
Right. Right.
I chose
Hmm.
to walk,
Right.
to have a jungle survival trip. Now, if you see our jungle, is one of the richest jungles. You know that?
Sure. Sure.
Do you know that the Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary National Park is one of the greatest biodiversities in the world?
Hotspots, yes.
It is such a hot spot. You can create such beautiful things.
And nobody's even
but it
spoken
has to
about
be
it,
done
yes.
sustainably.
Yes. True.
You know, that is what you have to control, because people, even if they're going trekking, those bottles should not be, even if they take, they have to bring them. They're dumping it over there,
Correct.
which is wrong. And this can be done if they do an infrastructure, which I'm asking them to create a permanent infrastructure by having, like, stills, wooden stills, like if you go down, like even in Andaman Islands, they've got, even over here, opposite, Kotin, they've got in this mangrove, they've got this beautiful still things, and they've got sort of a walkway.
New which one they have done.
Beautiful, something like that. If it's created in the jungle,
It works.
If you go now, what is happening with Goa is because the Goa government is becoming tough. Karnataka is capitalizing on the Dudhsagar waterfall.
Right.
Dudhsagar waterfall is in Goa. But what is happening? You go down to Karnataka, you go down to Kueshi, there's a village over there. You go down there, they've got a beautiful canopy walk,
Right.
which takes, where the government of Karnataka has charged. They charge you and then they bring you to the head of the waterfall, which is in Goa.
My God. Okay. This is very, very significant. I think these are very, very important
And
points.
these are, when we're talking about ecotourism, these are the basics things which are there, existing, we have to encash
Very
from, rather than
informative.
talking something big.
Mark, last words, you and then Siddharth can conclude.
Yeah, so I think let's look at all of this positively. What we have discussed, I think, are great thoughts that can be put together. And if we do, like you initially started this discussion with, if we do put it up as a plan with
Yes,
deeper
of
thought,
course.
with deeper thought, with proper footprints, and with a time scale, I think we'll probably be moving in the right direction.
Great. Siddharth, the last words.
The fact that Goa is blessed is beyond doubt. I think we should look at the glass as half full. We've had a tremendous recovery post-pandemic. There are brilliant minds at play over here in key roles. If the four of us in this conversation with you were able to come up with X number of ideas, imagine how many more with political and private entrepreneurship will can come up with. So I hope we look forward to a better future for Goa tourism.
You see, the genie in the bottle is will. If we have
Absolutely,
the
I was
will,
coming to us. Unless you have political
Yes.
will, I think half the things can be
that's
resolved.
right. So I think that's the genie that we should invoke and pray for, because we sometimes get this feeling that the best minds are not being put to use, or the best minds are out of the system and not inside it. And I think when you have these policies, they shouldn't just be on paper. Implementation needs the involvement of so many people. And the four people on this panel are absolutely equipped and adequate to contribute much more to Goa tourism. And if minds like these exist, and I'm sure there are many, many more, and we can multiply this number by so many times. And I actually feel enough conversations and enough discussions are not really happening with the right stakeholders and people who can actually input on this. Because Goa tourism is not just the government's business or the tourist business or the stakeholders' business. It is something that belongs to all of us, and it's it's an attribute that Goa has that is not only our treasure, but it is also the reason for the existence of many people. And Goa would not be Goa because of the place that it is, and to maintain that you need to make a very, very special effort so that more and more people can come and see what we are all about. On this note, I thank all my panelists for their very, very deep insights, and I just hope that this discussion is, even if it's a little pebble in the ocean, it goes a little bit towards creating some ripples towards having Goa, making Goa a much, much better tourist-friendly state. Thank you so much.